we are going to talk about strange thoughts.
Let's talk about strange thoughts. I think the most important thing to know about them is probably that we all have them. And that's really what we want to talk about today, that every single one of us has these strange thoughts and they're really no big deal. But what's funny is that sometimes we let them tell us who we really are. We think that these thoughts, these are the truth about us. Like, I admire people who are generous. I look around a lot of people, I can think, off the top of my head, I can see, my dad, for example, my mom and dad, super generous. And I admire them. And sometimes maybe I would hear someone say something to me like, hey, you're generous. And in my mind, I'm like, outside I'm like, oh, thanks, thank you. I appreciate that. But in my mind, I'm like, yeah, but you don't know that at one point while I was being generous, the thought went across my mind of like, I'd like to get some of this for myself. Like, what if I had all this money? What if I kept this? What if I... And so now I'm like, oh, like they're edifying me with who I want to be and how I want to show up. And I'm like, I've got these secrets, right? That are in me. Like, if you only knew, you wouldn't say that. If you only knew the real me that was deep inside. It blocks me from getting the beliefs I want to believe, seeing myself the way I want to see myself, as I go through that. And so what we want to talk about today is this idea that it's like, if thoughts are like radio waves and you're a radio station, you're like picking this up like the radio station in your car, you're just going to dial listen to music, that it would be almost like I don't like top 100 country music. I like red dirt country. I like Texas country music, but the top 100 I don't like so much. But it's on my radio. Like if I were to turn the dial on my radio, it would be as if I'm like, oh no, it's on my radio, therefore that's the music I listen to, rather than who I am being revealed by the presets I select on my station and which ones I choose to give attention to. Mm-hmm. How do you dial your radio? How do you know it's on the radio? How do you see your thoughts?
Well, I practice hearing them on a daily basis. So in the morning, I will write down pen and paper. I'll just jot them all out. And when I first started learning how to hear my thoughts, they sounded like the same thoughts. And so I was like, am I really hearing my thoughts? Because they seem really repetitive. But over time, building this skill, I have been able to hear more thoughts in real life.
And what's a weird one?
I would describe myself as being pretty courageous.
I think so. I would agree.
I like to commit to doing hard things.
Back down from a lot of challenges?
No.
We had date night last night, and so what do you want to do for date night? She's like, let's challenge ourselves. How about a fitness class at Orange Theory? Like that's like her for fun. Let's go seek challenge.
So I would say a weird thought is, that sounds hard. Let's find an excuse not to do it. And that thought comes up and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm not as courageous and committed as I think that I am.
Oh yeah, secretly, I'm not actually courageous. Yeah, it's all just a front that I put on. Yeah, that's a funny one.
Yeah. What about you? How do you see or hear your thoughts?
I definitely hear them. I find them fascinating. I laugh at them quite a bit. But one that comes up really every time I go to a place with a self-checkout, usually I'm getting groceries of some kind. Every time I walk up to the machine, the thought comes across, I could steal one item.
Oh.
Every time I'm here.
Yeah.
And no one would know. Yeah. I would never get caught. There's no risk. I could steal one item every single time. I could even steal the most expensive item. Yeah. If I wanted to. And worst case scenario, I walk out, someone's like, can I see your receipt? And I'm like, yeah, here's my receipt. And they're like, hey, this thing's not on there. If they even check that close to notice, oh my gosh, it didn't scan? That's so strange.
So how many things have you stolen?
I've stolen 0. Yeah, I've never stolen something, but I always have that thought, and I kind of chuckle because I actually really admire people who are good recklessly. Like even when it's to their advantage to be unethical in every way, and they would never get caught, no one would ever know, and they would gain this advantage, and they could have this potential, and they still choose their character. When I hear stories like that, those are my favorite people. I would never try to be the guy who was like, okay, let me get away with stealing one thing or another. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, it still pops through my mind, and I'm like, it's just so strange.
I would assume that most humans have considered the thought of, or considered stealing. Therefore, we have the thought, I could just steal this. I don't have to pay for it. But I don't think everyone would admit it.
Maybe not. So that thought, when I had that thought about Walmart, it doesn't stir up any emotion in me. I like chuckle. I'm like, oh, you know, silly thought. There it is again. Yeah, I can almost expect it as I come into the line. So how do you know when you are like taking one of those thoughts and rather than just seeing it, actually kind of living from it?
I used to have more thoughts that I would actually give into, like overeating and over drinking. I'm alone in my apartment when I used to live in an apartment, and I can just go eat that entire rest of the cake and no one will really ever know it was me. And a lot of times I would give into it, and so I really considered myself like, oh man, I really have no self-control, I have zero discipline, and I have a problem. Fast forward a couple of years, I'll still randomly have a thought like, oh, Jake just left the kitchen, I could eat half of this thing of ice cream and hide it. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. I would say that those thoughts defined how I thought about myself, who I was.
The real you, the secret you.
The real me,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm really someone who just is completely out of control, has no self-discipline. I really do have good discipline, but I still have thoughts that are weird. What about you?
I know when I'm picking up if I feel the emotion. Like if I were to think that thought at the checkout thing and I felt like a desire or like a greed or like a, you know, I was like, oh, I could do it. But but I know what I feel usually is like laughter. I feel dismissive of it would be like the, you know, the feeling that I have it. And so that's kind of how I can tell if this is something that's just passing through or, you know, that's on the radio, or if I'm tuning in my dial, this is what I'm going to listen to right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think checking in with myself on the emotion is a indicator of, oh yeah, I'm believing that thought. I think one that I would believe often was, I am not fun and I'm way too serious, and so I would feel really heavy, just emotionally heavy, and I would feel a lack of joy. I've trained myself to ask myself throughout the day, how am I feeling? Am I feeling really heavy? Like doing this? Am I having fun?
I thought you were going to say, I used to think I was very serious, and so I trained myself to have fun. I thought that's what you were going to say.
Basically, yeah, basically.
I know what you mean, that you like train yourself to look for the thoughts and recognize which thoughts are making you serious, but fun is fun. Wit likes to have fun just like the rest of us do, I promise. And I can see the danger of like believing that secret story, having the secret story that, no, this is real, this is the real me, are the things that are on my radio station, not just what I tune to. And that fueling your day in a poor way. And really that's what we want to just like kind of end with and let you guys know, is that everyone thinks the thoughts. Everyone has them. It's nothing that's specific to you. Everyone thinks they have their secret thoughts, but it's a lie that the real you is the secret you.
It's a lie. Don't believe it.
That was so fun. What is going on? We'll see you guys later.